There is a sacred stillness that arrives before sleep, a gentle invitation to surrender, to let go of the day, and to return to yourself. So much of life is spent in motion, in effort, in striving, but true transformation, true healing, often happens in the spaces where we are not trying. It happens in the silence. It happens in the stillness. And it happens quite mysteriously while you sleep. Before you lie down tonight, I invite you to pause, to offer your body something small, yet deeply intentional. 1 spoon, that's all. Just 1 spoon of something nourishing, perhaps rich in protein, in nature's wisdom, in quiet strength. You are not feeding your muscles alone. You are feeding the intelligence of your entire being. And in this simple, conscious act, you begin a dialogue with your body, not from fear, not from desperation, but from presence. There is a unique and profound moment that occurs just before we fall asleep. It is a space between wakefulness and dreaming, between thought and silence, between doing and simply being. In this brief, often unnoticed transition, the mind begins to quiet down, the muscles loosen, and the breath finds its natural rhythm. This is not merely the prelude to sleep. It is an entry point into a deeper state of presence. In that stillness, something sacred takes place, something that cannot be accessed while the mind is racing or the body is tense. It is here, in this threshold, where the body's deepest healing begins. Most people assume that healing requires action. They believe that growth and repair happen through movement, through exertion, through deliberate effort. But this is only one part of the process. There is a deeper dimension to healing, one that cannot be forced. It reveals itself only when all doing stops. It is in stillness, not activity, that the body opens to its most intelligent and natural form of restoration. The silence before sleep is not an empty pause. It is a living, vibrant field of transformation. This moment of stillness is not created by the mind. In fact, the mind often tries to avoid it. As soon as there is quiet, the mind races to fill it with thoughts, plans, worries, or memories. But beneath all of that noise, something more ancient waits patiently. The body does not require your thoughts in order to heal. In fact, it functions best when thought is no longer interfering. The nervous system begins to calm. Hormonal balance starts to return. Blood flow is redirected toward repair rather than defense. All of this begins not when you sleep, but when you become still. The shift starts even before the unconscious state arrives. To access this stillness, one must learn how to stop striving. Most of us carry tension into bed with us. Tension from our roles, our identities, our stories. We go to sleep, but we don't truly rest. The body may lie still, but the mind keeps working, and in this state, true restoration is delayed. However, when we become aware of the stillness available in the present moment, something softens, something opens. A sense of safety begins to settle into the body, and safety is the condition required for the body to begin its deepest healing work. The intelligence of the body is astonishing. It does not need instruction. Every cell knows exactly what to do. Damaged tissue is repaired, waste is cleared, muscles are rebuilt, memory is consolidated, the immune system is regulated, all without conscious control. But this intelligence operates most effectively in the absence of mental and physical resistance. That is why the stillness before sleep is so vital. It is the doorway to effortless healing. This stillness is not passivity. It is not emptiness in the dull sense. It is a vibrant, living presence. The body becomes receptive. It listens to the subtle rhythms of breath, to the quiet pulse of life within. In this space, everything unnecessary fades. There is no ambition, no pressure, no comparison. There is simply the truth of this moment, and the body, free from external demands, can return to its natural state of balance. To observe this moment without trying to manipulate it is a practice in itself. The impulse to turn it into a technique, a method, or a strategy must be gently set aside. This is not something to be achieved. It is something to be noticed. Stillness cannot be forced. It can only be allowed. And when it is allowed, it reveals its power. We are often taught that results come from effort, that strength is built through pushing. And yes, effort has its place, but it is only half the equation. Without stillness, effort becomes strain. Without rest, growth becomes exhaustion. The body needs both movement and rest, effort and stillness, activation and surrender. The stillness before sleep is not a passive moment. It is the fertile ground where renewal begins. In this space, the ego has no task. There is no one to impress, nothing to accomplish. This alone is healing. The energy that is normally spent maintaining identity and control is now freed to serve the body's deeper needs. Muscles that have been torn begin to knit themselves back together. Inflammation settles. Tension dissolves. The body returns to its natural rhythm, and all of this happens in the quiet. The less you interfere, the deeper the healing. When you start to recognize this moment as sacred, you stop rushing past it. You give yourself permission to rest without guilt. You begin to trust that doing less can bring more. You begin to feel the shift, not only in your body, but in your mind, your emotions, your entire presence. Stillness becomes a teacher, and healing becomes not something you chase, but something you receive. There is a deep intelligence within the body that is constantly working to support life. It asks for very little. It does not demand praise, nor does it beg for attention. It quietly performs the work of digestion, circulation, regeneration, and repair without interruption. And yet, how often do we pause to acknowledge it? How often do we speak to it, not with words, but with presence? When you take 1 spoon of nourishment before bed, this simple act becomes more than a physical transaction. It becomes a quiet offering to your body, a signal that says, I see you, I support you, I care for you. This is not about the calories or the grams of protein or the science behind it. It is about the energy with which you offer it. When done in awareness, that 1 spoon becomes a symbol of trust, a gesture of alignment between you and your physical form. In a world driven by speed and consumption, we are conditioned to eat out of habit, to fuel without thinking, to consume without presence. But the body responds differently when you are fully present. When you bring consciousness to even the smallest action, the body listens, it softens, it becomes receptive. You move out of the survival response and into harmony. That 1 spoon, when taken with mindfulness, is like a doorway into deeper connection. Your body is not separate from you. It is not a machine that operates under orders. It is a living field of intelligence responding constantly to your internal state. Every emotion, every thought, every act of presence or absence leaves an imprint. So when you take that spoon before bed, not in a rush, not distracted, but aware, you are speaking directly to that intelligence. You are saying without words, you are safe now, you are supported, you may begin to heal. Many people approach their bodies with judgment. They view it as something to fix, to discipline, to control, but judgment creates resistance. It builds tension, and tension is the enemy of restoration. When you act from judgment, the body becomes defensive, it braces itself, it no longer trusts. But when you act from care, from inner stillness, from quiet respect, the body relaxes. And only in that relaxation can true healing take place. So that 1 spoon before bed is not just a nutritional choice, it is an energetic one. You are not just feeding muscles. You are offering yourself a moment of care, a moment of listening, a moment of trust. And trust is the foundation of healing. You trust that what you are offering is enough. You trust that the body knows what to do with it. You trust that even as you sleep, your body is doing its work in ways you cannot see. This kind of trust cannot be manufactured. It arises from presence, from the decision to pause, to feel, to connect with what is here now. If you eat that spoon in a rush, while scrolling through your phone, while thinking about tomorrow, the signal is lost. The body does not feel seen. It is like trying to have a conversation while your attention is somewhere else. The communication becomes fragmented. But when you are fully present, the body feels it, the cells respond. This is the subtle power of awareness. It changes everything, not because it adds something, but because it removes the interference. It removes the tension. It brings you into alignment with the natural flow of healing. And from that space, even the smallest action becomes meaningful. Even a spoon of food becomes sacred. Your body remembers how it is treated. It holds that memory in the tissues, in the muscles, in the breath. So when you consistently offer it nourishment with awareness, you build a new relationship, one based not on control or fear, but on respect over time. That respect transforms the way the body responds to everything, from rest to recovery to growth. You are no longer fighting your body, you are working with it, and this cooperation, this silent partnership, creates a space where muscles are rebuilt not through force, but through harmony. You do not have to say anything out loud. The body feels your intention. When that spoon is taken from a place of presence, the body receives it differently. It is no longer just fuel. It becomes a message that says, you are no longer alone in this. We are in this together. That one spoon becomes a ritual of connection, a quiet conversation between your awareness and your physical form, and the body, in its quiet wisdom, responds not with resistance, but with trust. There is a common belief that growth requires constant effort, that if we are not doing something, we are falling behind. This belief is deeply embedded in the culture. Work harder, train longer, push through. And while effort has its place, it is not the source of true transformation. The body does not rebuild when it is under stress. It does not grow stronger while it is being pushed. It waits, it listens. And when the effort ends, when the stillness arrives, that is when the real work begins. The muscles you challenge during the day are not repaired during the challenge itself. In fact, the challenge breaks them down. It creates tiny tears in the fibers, a necessary destruction that opens the door to growth. But the rebuilding happens in rest, in the quiet, in the surrender, not while you are lifting weights, running miles, or stretching your limits, but when you stop, when you lie still, when your breath softens and your thoughts begin to dissolve. That is the space where true regeneration begins. This idea is difficult for the mind to accept. The mind is addicted to doing. It finds value in effort and struggles with the idea that anything worthwhile can happen without its involvement. It wants to remain in control, to monitor progress, to push toward results. But the body does not need the mind to heal. The body knows. Its intelligence is not verbal or logical. It is cellular, intuitive, and deeply connected to rhythms older than thought. In the stillness of sleep, the body enters a state where all systems shift toward repair. The nervous system moves into parasympathetic mode, what is often called the rest and digest state. Heart rate slows, blood pressure drops, stress hormones decline. The body turns its attention inward, redirecting energy from activity toward restoration. Muscles that were torn during the day begin to regenerate. Proteins are synthesized. nutrients are distributed, inflammation is reduced. And all of this happens without any conscious effort. The body's ability to heal in stillness is not something that needs to be created. It is already there. It is always available, but it can be blocked by tension, by noise, by resistance. If the mind does not let go, if the body remains in a state of low-grade stress, the healing is delayed. Sleep may come, but the depth of rest is shallow. The restoration is incomplete. That is why becoming still, truly still, is so important. Not just lying down, but releasing. Not just closing the eyes, but letting go of control. Muscle growth, physical repair, and deep regeneration require not only time, but quality of stillness, a body that is allowed to enter a deep, undisturbed state of rest will recover far more efficiently than one that is in a state of tension. This is not about sleeping longer, it is about sleeping deeper. And that depth is only possible when the system feels safe enough to let go. Safety is not created through force. It is created through presence. When you approach the body with kindness, when you listen rather than command, when you allow rather than push, the body begins to trust, it opens, it receives. This is not weakness, it is the doorway to true strength. Muscles do not grow simply from what you do to them. They grow in response to how you care for them after. And the greatest form of care is stillness. Stillness is not nothingness. It is full of subtle movement, of breath, of energy, of cellular repair. But it does not require your interference. It only requires your permission. When you stop trying to fix the body, you allow it to return to its own intelligence. And that intelligence is profound. It does not make mistakes. It does not require noise or complexity. It asks for space. It asks for silence. It asks for you to step aside so that it may do its quiet work. To trust that the body knows how to heal is to step into a deeper relationship with yourself, one that does not rely on constant effort, but on deep listening, one that honors the rhythm of exertion and recovery, of doing and being. You begin to see that sleep is not the absence of growth, but its foundation, that in the quiet hours of the night, far beneath the surface, life is rearranging itself in ways you cannot see, that the stillness you enter is not empty, it is sacred. And within that sacred space, the body remembers what it was always capable of doing. Every moment of nourishment carries a frequency beyond its physical form. What we give to the body is not only what can be measured on a label or described by science, but also what is infused by our attention, our energy, and our inner state. When we take a single spoon of something nourishing before bed, it can either be a mechanical act or a conscious gesture, and that difference, the difference between unconscious consumption and conscious nourishment, determines how the body receives it. In the world of nutrition, much is said about timing, macros, and digestion. These things are useful, but underneath all of that is a quieter truth. The body responds to how we give as much as what we give. If we eat with stress, even the healthiest food becomes difficult to absorb. If we nourish with presence, even the simplest substance can be transformative. The body listens not just to nutrients, but to awareness. It absorbs not only matter, but intention. When you take that one spoon before sleep, you are giving the body a message. You are saying, here is what you need, and I am here with you. The timing is not arbitrary. It is not just about optimizing protein synthesis or metabolic rate. It is about rhythm. The body functions in cycles. It follows the tides of day and night, light and darkness, activity and rest. When you offer nourishment just before you cross into sleep, you are aligning with this rhythm. You are placing the gift of support into the current of deep repair. Sleep is not a passive state. It is one of the most active times in the inner world. While the mind may be silent, the body is orchestrating a symphony of repair, regeneration, and renewal. Muscles that were used, challenged, or stressed during the day are now receiving the materials they need to rebuild. The cells are taking stock of damage, restoring what was lost, clearing what is no longer needed. This entire process unfolds beneath awareness, but it is influenced by what we do before we sleep. When that spoon of nourishment is offered consciously, it becomes a preparation, not just for sleep, but for the work of healing that will happen in your absence. It's like lighting a candle before a ceremony, a quiet acknowledgement that something important is about to begin, that your body, with all its wisdom, is now being trusted to do what it knows how to do, not through control, but through support, not through force, but through listening. We live in a culture that values doing more than being. We are taught to measure progress by visible effort, to equate growth with struggle, but the body operates differently. It does not always need more effort. Sometimes it simply needs space. The unconscious hours are not wasted. They are where the invisible work happens, and the quality of that work is influenced by how we enter that space. A rushed, disconnected act of eating before bed tells the body to brace itself. A calm, mindful moment of nourishment tells it to open. What is offered in awareness becomes a seed. That spoon before bed is not just a physical substance. It is a gesture that plants a message into the field of the body. You are supported, and the body, like any living system, responds to that message. It softens, it receives. The walls come down, the healing begins, not because of the nutrient alone, but because of the space that has been created for it to be received. Digestion and assimilation are not purely mechanical. They are sensitive to your internal state. The parasympathetic nervous system, the mode of rest, digest, and restore, only activates when you feel safe, present, and relaxed. If the mind is restless, if there is tension in the body, the system does not open. Nourishment is blocked. But when you sit in stillness, even for a moment, and take that spoon without distraction, without rush, something shifts, the body moves into receptivity, and in that state, healing is no longer delayed, it is welcomed. Every small act done in presence carries a ripple. That spoon before bed, taken in stillness, becomes more than something to eat. It becomes an invitation, a quiet agreement between you and your body, a recognition that even as you sleep, life continues to flow. The nourishment you offer becomes part of that flow. It enters the bloodstream, it reaches the muscles, it feeds the cells. But more importantly, it carries the message of awareness, and that message speaks louder than anything else. In the modern world, routine is often seen as something mechanical, a series of actions repeated without thought. We eat, we move, we sleep, sometimes without ever pausing to notice how those actions shape our inner and outer life. But when awareness enters even the smallest act, everything changes. What was once a habit becomes a ritual. What was once ordinary becomes sacred, and the shift is not in what we do, but in how we do it. The one spoon taken before bed is not just a nutritional supplement. It is a moment of communion with the body. When taken in presence, it becomes a ritual, a gesture of alignment between body and consciousness. Presence transforms the nature of any experience. It brings depth to simplicity. Most people eat while distracted. They are thinking about tomorrow, scrolling through their devices, caught in conversation, or simply checked out. The food goes in, but it is not truly received. There is no awareness of texture, of temperature, of sensation. The body is fed, but not met. It becomes a task completed, not a connection made. But when you stop even for a brief moment and bring your full attention to that spoon, its taste, its weight, the feeling of it entering the body, then the act becomes something else entirely. It becomes a conversation. A ritual is not about formality, it is about intention. It is about stepping out of automatic behavior and into conscious relationship. Taking that spoon before sleep can be a way of saying, without words, I honor this moment, I care for this vessel. I recognize that healing is not something I force, but something I allow. This soft shift in attention changes how the body receives nourishment. It is not only about digestion, it is about energy, the energy of presence, the energy of slowness, the energy of connection. The body responds to consistency, but even more to consciousness. When something is done with attention again and again, it creates a pattern, a new field of awareness. It becomes a doorway into presence. That spoon, when offered with the same calm intention each night, begins to anchor you into yourself. It marks the transition from waking to resting, from doing to being. It becomes a sacred pause in the rhythm of your life, a moment where nothing is asked, nothing is forced, only offered. There is a subtle intelligence in ritual. It is not about superstition or control. It is about creating space. The world moves fast, and the body absorbs the pace. Tension builds, nervous systems stay activated long after the stimulus is gone, but ritual slows things down. It creates a space where breath deepens, where thought softens, where the body begins to feel safe again. And safety is what allows the deeper processes of healing to begin. Not just muscular repair, but nervous system regulation, emotional release, cellular renewal. All of it becomes possible when there is no longer resistance. The spoon before bed is small, but it is symbolic. It is the embodiment of a choice to turn inward, to tune in, to become aware of this moment. And that choice ripples into the night. The way you enter sleep matters. If you fall into it exhausted, unconscious, disconnected, your body will work harder to find its way back to balance. But if you enter sleep through the gateway of presence, the path is smoother. The systems are already aligned. The healing begins sooner. The muscles receive what they need. The breath becomes full. The dreams become clearer. Not because you tried harder, but because you became still. Presence is not something you need to earn. It is not the result of effort. It is available now, in the smallest gesture, even in something as simple as a spoon of nourishment. When the mind quiets and the attention deepens, that spoon becomes more than food. It becomes a bridge, a way of returning home to the body, a way of acknowledging that the body, too, is a part of your spiritual path. It is not just something to maintain or improve. It is something to listen to care for, to love. By making that act a ritual, you begin to honor your own existence in a new way, not as a project to fix, but as a process to be trusted. You begin to feel the sacred within the ordinary. You begin to sense that even as you rest, you are being reshaped, not just by what you take, but by how you take it. And that awareness, repeated nightly, becomes its own form of nourishment. A quiet reminder that presence, not effort, is what opens the body to receive and the heart to heal. The body carries a wisdom that is far deeper than what can be understood through thought. Beneath the surface of skin and muscle, beyond the reach of analysis or measurement, there exists a quiet intelligence. It knows how to heal a wound without being told. It knows how to breathe without instruction. It knows how to digest, circulate, eliminate, and repair, all without effort. This intelligence is not something you control. It is something you can trust. But to trust it, you must first learn how to surrender. Surrender is not weakness. It is not passivity. It is the courageous act of stepping aside, of releasing the need to manage every detail, of allowing life to move through you without resistance. When you surrender, you are not giving up, you are giving over to a deeper order, to a rhythm that is already in motion. And in that surrender, the body is finally given permission to do what it has always known how to do. The body does not ask for domination. It does not require force. What it longs for is cooperation. It responds not to pressure but to presence. When you stop pushing, when you stop interfering, when you create space within yourself, the body steps forward. It listens to the silence, not to the shouting mind. Healing begins not when you command it, but when you allow it. Allowing is not the same as waiting. Waiting has tension. Waiting is an expectation tied to outcome. Allowing is spacious. It is a receptive state. It is the soil in which all things grow. When you take that 1 spoon of nourishment before bed and then release all effort, you are creating the conditions for the body to receive. You are saying, I have done what I can. Now I step aside. This is where the true transformation takes place, not in the doing, but in the being, in the silence that follows action, in the space that follows the offering. You do not need to know how your body rebuilds muscle tissue. You do not need to direct the enzymes, the proteins, the cells. You simply need to trust that it is happening. And to trust, you must surrender. The mind resists this. It wants control, it wants certainty. It is uncomfortable with the unseen, but the unseen is where life happens. Roots grow in darkness. Muscles heal in sleep. The heart beats in silence. Just because you cannot see the process does not mean it is not occurring. The surrender is an act of respect for that which you do not need to understand. It is an honoring of the deeper intelligence that animates you. When you stop interfering, the body does not become idle, it becomes alive. It begins to reorganize itself in ways that serve wholeness. It restores balance where there was tension. It builds strength where there was depletion. It clears what no longer serves and renews what still holds value. All of this happens not because you force it, but because you step out of the way. Surrender is not something that happens once. It is a continuous practice. Each night, as you prepare for sleep, you are given the opportunity to release again. To say with your breath, with your posture, with your presence, I am not in charge of everything. I do not need to be. There is something in me that knows, something in me that can be trusted, and in that quiet knowing, the healing unfolds. Even the act of sleeping is a surrender. You cannot make yourself fall asleep. You can only prepare for it and then let go. You cannot force rest. You can only create the space for it to come. And so, in the same way, you cannot force the body to heal. You can only support it with what it needs: nourishment, rest, presence, and then allow the deeper wisdom to guide the process. The more you surrender, the more you begin to feel the subtle rhythms of life moving through you. You become more attuned to your breath, to your heartbeat, to the way your body communicates in sensations rather than words. You no longer approach your body as a problem to be solved, but as a partner to be heard. You stop fighting it, you start listening. And in the listening, you discover that nothing more is needed than what is already within you. This is the quiet power of surrender. It is not dramatic, it is not loud, it is simple, soft, steady. It is a turning inward, a yielding to what is. And in that yielding, the body finds the space to return to itself, to rebuild, to renew, to remember its own strength. You do not have to carry the whole process. You only need to create the space for it to unfold. That space begins with trust, and trust begins in stillness.